week's chapter of Bleach, we get to learn about the dark and fiery history of both Jugram Haschwalth and Bazz-B. Not to mention, we also get to learn about the formal formation of the Stern Ritter Army. This week's chapter might not be a big action fest, what we're looking for in terms of a big badass battle, but it's the type of chapter that I've been waiting to see for a long time, because I love these Quincy characters. I think they're really cool, they have unique designs, they have really great powers, but now that we're finally getting backstories on these characters, we can actually care about them just a little bit more. And I think it's really shocking and surprising that both Haschwalth and Bazz-B apparently used to be friends when they were younger. There's a whole scene in this week's chapter where they meet each other, where they're hunting in the woods, and Bazz-B's overall design here is great. Very similar to what he looks like when he's adult. He's sort of lacking the whole mohawk, but he's got all of this like gladiatorial army on as he's hunting with this badass crossbow, which, again, this scene is really clever because we get to see both Haschwalth and, of course, Bazz-B are trading with bow and arrows, and considering that they eventually become a big part of the Quincy army, that's just perfect right there. Like I said, one of the coolest things about this chapter is just getting to see these Quincy characters in a much younger state, a different state of mind before they were sort of corrupted by the Quincy King, and I really can't wait to see how that's going to develop, because at the beginning of this week's chapter, at the beginning of the flashback, we get to see when Bazz-B and Haschwalth meet each other, where they're hunting in the woods with their bow and arrows and their crossbows. This is, of course, a nice allusion to the fact that they're eventually going to become a part of the Quincy army, which is definitely known for using their arrows. They're doing rabbit hunting, and Jugram Haschwalth is trying to hunt down a rabbit for his uncle, who he claims is his only family left. We don't ever get to see his uncle. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of special revelation behind this character, but Bazz-B says that he's going to take Haschwalth and bring him under his wing. And they're very different characters, you know. Bazz-B's very loud, outspoken, very tough. Haschwalth is very reserved, calm, and quiet, but they complement each other in a really cool way. And then we get to learn that it's actually the Quincy leader who burned down Bazz-B and Haschwalth's villages to the ground. However, a couple years have passed, the Quincy leader's been conquering countries left and right, and he's getting ready to conquer Soul Society, which completely freaks out his subordinates, and that's when he decides he's now going to form the Stern Ritter. I especially love that final look at the Quincy leader, seeing him. He looks just like the younger form of Zangetsu, which is used by Ichigo. It's really freaking awesome. I can't wait to get a little more backstory on his character, and how, like, this whole, like, Quincy's, like, taking over the countries in the past actually took place. I really want to learn more about the history of these characters and how basically the Quincy leader is just sort of like manipulating everybody for his own dark desires. So what's the rundown on this week's chapter of Bleach? This was a flashback chapter that I actually really liked, and it wasn't even all that exciting. It was just seeing these two characters in a younger state actually hunting in the woods, but just getting to see their actual true personalities come out when they're not in a war setting, I think is really interesting, because we actually get to know the characters, we get to care about them a little bit more, and now I actually sort of feel a little bit more in this battle between Bazz-B and Haschwalth, because they have this past with each other, they apparently are friends, and they had this big plan to sort of overthrow the Quincy King, and something down the line might have changed things. Like, it seems like at this point in the story anyway, Haschwalth is completely loyal to the Quincy cause and to the actual king himself, so I'm thinking there might have been a falling out between these two characters. Maybe Haschwalth himself is being manipulated by the Quincy King in some sense. Maybe their powers are connected. Maybe they have some sort of like family connection. Maybe that's why we actually didn't get to see Haschwalth's uncle, which I still think is a really interesting development. And just, you know, they went through that flashback real quick, you know, hunting sequence. We're friends. Frickin' Quincy leader burns down the village, we're gonna kill the Quincy leader. A couple years pass, and that goes completely south. But I really like the fact that we're going to learn a little bit more about the formation of the Stern Ritter, maybe where they got their special powers from, and this might lead into even more Quincy history. Otherwise, I like this. I think a lot of these new characters need backstories. I'm really surprised we haven't gotten the Quincy leaders yet, in terms of, like, from beginning to end, but we're probably going to get that when we get to the big final battle with him, which, of course, is going to involve Ichigo. Otherwise, this week's chapter was actually really good, and I think it was a nice setup, and is going to make the battle between Haschwalth and Bazz-B all the more intense. Is Bazz-B going to win? Probably not. And that's a shame because his powers are so cool. There's a few action scenes this week where they're basically just sort of running around, running across pillars, slamming into walls, using fire techniques, and it all looks really good, as does the artwork in this week's chapter. This was just a pretty exciting setup chapter, which has got me even more excited for the battle between Bazz-B and Haschwalth. So I thought this one was really good. So I'm going to give this week's chapter a 4 out of 5. Check it out, Bleach fans. If you used to watch the anime version, if you've been reading the manga version, check out this week's chapter. It's got some pretty cool developments. So I like this one a lot. But what about you guys? What did you think of the backstory of Haschwalth and Bazz-B? How do you think that's going to tie into the current story? Do you think that Haschwalth is actually going to betray Bazz-B? Do you think they're going to end up killing each other in the blaze of glory? What do you want to see from the rest of the final arc of Bleach? Please tell me in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching my review. Make sure to like it, share it with all of your friends, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. That way you can see all of our latest anime and manga reviews, and even our brand new podcast show. It's pretty awesome. Me and Christian talk about a lot of cool stuff. You guys can also follow us on social media. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby.